Welcome back. So this is our first full panel of the day. This is panel 21, FutureCasting, Where Do We Want to Go? I'm extremely excited about this panel. Let me first hand this, though, to introduce our fabulous cast of characters, the amazing dulcet tones of Larry Miller from NYU.
Thank you, Gigi, and hi everybody, and welcome to Friday and day two. I loved the questions that Gigi and Storm and the Amplify programming team came up with to introduce this panel. What can we intentionally build within and between our communities, and where are we going, and how will we get there? And I can't think of a better and more experienced and smarter and more insightful group of panelists than the ones that we have today. I will introduce them very briefly before they make their opening remarks, and we are going to jump right into it, if that's okay with you. Michelle McKenzie is director of the Urban Inclusion Community and is in partnership with Sound Diplomacy. Michelle and Urban Inclusion are focused on building music communities in Lagos and Accra primarily, and joins us today from London. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you doing?
Michelle, can you tell us a bit more about what you do now, and share, please, also your current perspective on where we are now in mid-2021?
Okay, well, you gave us a fine introduction. Urban Inclusion Community, we're a social enterprise, originally based in the UK, started in the UK in 2006. And since 2012, we've had an office in Accra, working in Accra and Lagos. As you said, we're currently engaged in a project building music resilience packages for West Africa, specifically Lagos and Accra, and we're doing that in partnership with Sound Diplomacy. Challenging times. I think we all know just how challenging these times are. I think the scenario for West Africa is one where there's a realization, I think, around how fragile the industry is in many respects. And what is really required currently is a revision, a review, and investment in the music industry to breathe life, not only in the ecosystem, but also in all those, in other complementary industries as well. So I think one of the key learning curves that Accra and Lagos has been going through is really understanding how fragile the industry is, but how much can be done to actually make it more resilient. And by that, what I mean is providing an environment, creating an environment in which musicians and music industry actors can create a livelihood. There are many things that pull on that. There are many things that create a tension with that. One, there's the public and how the public can gain access to music, gain access to live performances, gain access to recorded music. And then also, other issues around infrastructure that will support that. As well as issues around financing and development of the industry as well. So I think this has been a real learning experience for musicians, even in terms of how they present their music. And by that, what I mean is, now that we have the dearth of live performances, everyone seems to think that jumping ship and using the digital model is a viable alternative, when in fact, I think for certain parts of the world, that's not the case. Sometimes that's because infrastructure is not as developed and doesn't necessarily support musicians and other cultural actors as well to make that transfer from live performance, studio work onto a digital platform. That's one of the challenges, but also in terms of how one performs, how one reaches one's audience. And I think for Africa in particular, how one makes a livelihood, how one makes a living, continuing to produce music and whatever other cultural activities that are their mainstay. Those are what I think are some of the absolute key challenges, as well as, very briefly, as well as understanding the importance of policy, music policy that actually supports a creative environment. In Ghana, for example, and I'll just make this as a final point, in Ghana, for example, they have now introduced the new Creative Arts Bill. And with that, there is the Creative Arts Agency. I'm hoping that Frank from the Creative Arts Agency is present and we'll be able to speak a little bit more about that. But I think it's really about, for Africa in general, and for West Africa specifically, it really is about paying attention to create an environment that is sustainable and that supports creativity.
And can I ask you to share a very concise vision of what you think will be different, say, 3 to 5 years out?
I'd like to think, and again, looking at Ghana, I'd like to think that the investment in infrastructure that supports music will continue to progress. It started. Things like affordability of tech, which again will impact on things like digital productions, impact on things like streaming. Streaming is not necessarily that viable an option in West Africa, for example, certainly currently. So yes, I would like to think that the future will hold better infrastructure, a greater understanding of what is needed to create a sustainable and viable music industry, as well as addressing a lot of the other barriers that exist for musicians. Those are the 3 key things I think need to happen in West Africa, in Ghana, Nigeria specifically.
Thank you, Michelle. Let's go to Hamburg. Lena Ingwersen is a project manager at Music City Communities and joins us today from there. And so, Lena, tell us a bit about how the world looks from where you sit today, and then let's talk about your vision for where we're going and how we're going to get there.
Yeah, thank you, Larry, and thanks for the invitation. I'm happy to meet you all here and exchange. I'm here on behalf of the Worldwide and Transnational Music Cities Network. It's based in Hamburg, but working transnationally. It was initiated in 2016 as well by Sound Diplomacy. So, Michelle, I think we have a lot of things to talk about after this as well. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
As well as the Hamburg Music Business Association, based in Hamburg as the lobbying body for the music companies. In the meantime, we're 10 members of the Music Cities Network, Aarhus, Bergen, Berlin, Hamburg, Gothenburg, Groningen in the Netherlands, Manchester, Nantes in France, Reykjavik in Iceland, and Sydney. Wow. So we are kind of a widespread, still quite Western European focus on the aim to exchange and improve the communication and collaboration and policies between music cities in the world. Yeah. The idea is not new, but still, I think in the current state of the development and the pandemic, we were very glad to have the network last year because the structure was there already. The aim of the network is to work holistically and understand music as infrastructure, Michelle, as you said as well, as part of city development. And that is what we're trying to implement in the work. We do that in different projects. We do that in different shaping of policies, but also in joint researches in collaboration with a lot of other partners. So I think what, for me, or my perspective on this is, that is that we try to create good frames for music within the city, and this is something, if we would have had that good frames already, looking at my international partners, I'm speaking on behalf of, it maybe would have not been so bad for them as it is now. So the club culture, the venue culture, all the music ecosystem is actually down. Here in Hamburg especially as well, everything is closed since November. I'm not only allowed to meet one other person at this point. So it's crazy, and it really goes down to the core. it definitely, what you said, Michelle, resonates with me a lot. You know, we need to think about more resilient structures for the music ecosystem. It's very fragmented, and that became very clear in the last month and in the last year. With the Music Cities Network, we try to see the whole city as a music city ecosystem and understand which stakeholders are working together and trying to bring this all together. It's hard work, but it's where we're standing now. I think I'm hopeful in a way, as I think, still I know that music and culture will be the ones bringing us together, you know, and bringing us the social cohesion and the joint joy we need to continue working with that, what we're doing.
Lena, how do you think things will have shifted significantly over the next several years? What are you looking forward to? What do you believe is achievable, and how are you going to get there?
I'm an optimist generally, and I think what has shown or what has become clear in the last year that for me personally, but also for the network, music and culture are still and will be the glue for our society. And music needs to be seen and acknowledged as integrated part of city development. I think this is one of our wishes and my wish personally as well. We need to work on policies, and we need to work to support the bottom-up initiatives and different small projects, but we can't forget the policy side from top down. This needs to be tangled together. It needs to be a holistic approach. This is not something that has happened so intuitively and also like on the integrated part. I think it's still very fragmented, especially as well in Europe, with the perspective from me, my experience of 12 years in the music industry in Germany. We need to raise the awareness that culture and music are the most important links of our transnational societies, also looking at the current developments that are taking place in different areas of the world. Creativity and innovation will still be the driving forces, and I think we need to work to push that forward. I think with the network and also my movement or my vibe, because I'm in this, is that we need to acknowledge the value of music on all levels. And this is what I try to do, or what we try to do with the Music Cities Network as well, in connecting in conferences like this and spread the word and work together on this. There's a lot of more I would be able to say, but I will stop here.
Thank you, Lena. And thanks for keeping it brief. I know you have much more to share with us.
Not so easy, but yes.
Let us shift from the world of public policy, strictly speaking, to the commercial world, and shift over to Singapore. Meng Kuok is the owner of Bandlab Technologies and is based there, although a frequent global traveler. He owns NME, Uncut, and a bunch of other assets. And Meng, how are you viewing where we are now in mid-2021?
Hello?
Yes, Meng, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, I got cut off for a second there. Yeah, so very pleased to be on the conference. Someone had to mess up with the audio, and it had to be me. But Larry, thanks for the introduction, and just for brief overview of the things that we do within Bandlab Technologies. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Bandlab Technologies, and within the group, we handle multiple things within the music space, everything from creation all the way to consumption. So really looking across music and different sectors of music, all the way from manufacturing. We own our own brands, guitar brands, founded and based in the US, Harmony Guitars, Heritage Guitars. We manufacture these in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We distribute them around the world. We also own our own distributor out in Southeast Asia and retail stores, and represent many different brands in the music space, more from creation side, On the media side, as Larry mentioned, NME Magazine, Guitar.com, MusicTech.net, formerly owned Rolling Stone from 2016 to 2019. In the media space, again, we're very much focused in the world of music, everything from specialists in terms of music creation and players, all the way again to more consumer listening and pop culture. And at the center of it all, the flagship product of Bandlab Technologies is Bandlab.com. Bandlab, the platform, easiest way to understand it is sort of Facebook for music, but with GarageBand and SoundCloud/Bandcamp built in. It's a place where people can make music. It's a place where people can share music. And sort of where we sit today in April 2021, I think I said this, the first time I connected with some of you guys, there's a strange sense of a little bit of survivor's guilt, when we think about how crazy the world has been and the amount of people affected by what's going on. When we entered the situation last year, there were areas we were very afraid of and frankly worried about, especially the fact we have physical stores. We have stores where people have to go in, and some of these places were shut down because of the pandemic. In different countries, we operate stores in Singapore, Malaysia, LA, Indonesia, Vietnam, and all the different policies and systems in place cause all these different stores to be shut at different times, and also logistics being affected in supply chain. But strangely, on that side, we quickly realized that while everyone was panic buying toilet paper, they also were panic buying guitars. And I'm sure you guys have seen some really interesting and positive stories coming out of the New York Times and great publications like Rolling Stone and Billboard talking about the big growth in people picking up instruments during the pandemic. And so, we saw some really exciting trends there. On the media side, as you guys know, consumption of content was more important than ever. And we definitely saw, the highest traffic. Bandlab side, which is really, where people are congregating in a virtual world, we were most excited. And today, we went past all the original predictions and had to reforecast everything in terms of growth numbers. We ended the year where we're close to 33 million registered users around the world today, and more than 10 million songs a month being made on Bandlab, the platform. So, it's quite incredible to see that kind of growth and people utilizing new technology and a platform to try and make music at a time where they really can't get into a room together. And I think, some of the trends that we were seeing already that have driven some of the Bandlab growth were already happening, with the attention economy, with everyone's attention span being taken away by gaming, film, TV, Netflix, and all the different distractions that we have. The idea of a previous generation's way of learning an instrument, like going to a guitar store and buying a guitar for your very first instrument, or meeting friends and getting into a garage and starting to make music together. These things don't really exist anymore, right? Instead of going to a music store to buy your first instrument, everyone has their very first instrument in their hands, and it's a mobile phone. And, no one gets together in person anymore. They're connecting online first before they decide to make plans to get together in person. So it's a very different world. And so, as we sit here in April, it's a very interesting time because we see a lot of positives. We see a lot of very interesting tailwinds that are coming through in terms of the wider independent music space. But at the same time, through our instrument brands and a lot of the things that we do, especially the professional industry, so many close friends, so many session musicians have really seen their businesses damaged in a very, very, disturbing and worrying way. And I think, there are definitely some major challenges ahead, but, there are positives to be taken from the fact that so many more people are engaging in music. But obviously, some significant things have to be thought about and considered, especially as it relates to, the people who have made the industry what it is today and that we can all benefit from and are all on this call because.
So COVID was an unexpected accelerant, at least for some or many of the assets that you now own. What do you think we'll be looking at 3 to 5 years out?
Well, I think there are some interesting positives, right? I think, a lot of focus can be on the negatives, which is worrying about the existing state of the industry and what happens to it. I think some of the real positives that we're particularly excited about is seeing the growth, for example, and the continued growth despite people and places starting to open up, which makes us believe that as people reconnect in an offline environment, the fact that they've embraced new technology that they may not necessarily have done in the past or have put the effort into because of the fact that they didn't need to, we see some exciting trends that actually that could spur more creativity because people now have new technology to support the offline relationships that they have as we start to get together in person. And then secondly, I think with the amount of people who've actually picked up new instruments, there's no question that there could be a massive, massive growth in terms of new songwriting, in terms of new talent that's out there that never would have given it a chance because they were too busy with sports or some other passions or, X, Y, and Z that was keeping them busy throughout the day. So, I think the positives that I like to look at is, there could be some really amazing music coming out in 3 to 5 years, and also the support for the leapfrog in technology, and especially as it comes to music creation, which is really what we're very much focused on. And as a result, towards the end of that supply chain, we believe there will also be, some real benefits for music consumption as well, and people who benefit from that. Exciting. Thank you, Meng. Jim Griffin is my friend. For longer than I care to admit. He is today Vice President of Digital Rights at PEX. Jim is many things. He is an organizer, he is a ringleader, he is a futurist, and in his not so distant past was President of Network Music Licensing at Warner Music Group. He has been an advisor for many years to those in public policy and has testified a number of times here in the U.S. on federal copyright matters. When I first met him, Jim was the first head of digital at Geffen Records. What are you saying?
Larry, that's such a kind introduction, and I'd happily co-conspire with you anytime. And I look forward to doing more of that. Look, I think there's 3 things worth commenting about, and I'll make them quick. The first one is that creativity is moving from the center of the network out towards its edge. There was a time when everything came out of Hollywood or something like Hollywood, New York, Los Angeles, London. Things were very centered. And licensing and registering works was easy because we did it right at the center of the network. You could even look, for example, at a cable system or an antenna emanating, and everything came from its center. But today, that creativity is moving out towards the network's edge. And that's a profound shift. I would say that it is alarming to some who take security from the center of the network. But look at Meng. His users are people who weren't traditionally a part of the music ecosystem. They were at its edge, not at its center. Perhaps they looked forward to being discovered, but not today. Because today they're doing perfectly well with Meng and others feeding them the products and services that they need in order to be creative. And so that creativity moving from the network center to its edge is a fundamental change. The second one I'll point out is really one that my friend Will Page has just written a book about called Tarzan Economics. Clearly, we are in a shift from music the product, creativity the product, to music the service, and creativity the service. And by the way, I'm not just talking about services here, not like, oh, Spotify is a music service, etc. I'm saying that music performs a service for many other industries, drawing a crowd, making gaming more fun, making you stay and have another drink. Music, the service, is now in so many ways more important than music, the product, ever was. We did not find the value coming off the back of a truck from a warehouse. Increasingly, we find that value in the way that it moves your rear end, or it grabs your eyes, or it takes your senses away. And so that shift from product to service, Will calls it Tarzan Economics, I think is profound and very, very important. And I will say, thirdly, we have a challenge coming this summer. The EU has issued a copyright directive that is being transposed in each of the member countries that challenges us to take control of the music where the owner wants it. And there are many of us who are skeptical about this, and yet it's a challenge that must be met. One of the reasons I'm at PEX is because PEX is fascinated with this transition to balance control and compensation in various ways. So I would say those are the 3 main trends, and I'll leave it at that.
And so, Jim, to fast forward a few years out, as much as we mentioned when we were chatting with Meng a minute ago, COVID has accelerated many things that were already in play. Where do you think we'll be in, say, 5 years?
Look, I'll just put it like this. It's going to look a lot less like you and me and a lot more like my co-panelists. And that's a great thing. That is fantastic. I think that's the excitement that I feel for the future, is that so many people from the edge of the network are coming in and really transforming this industry. And so it's going to look a lot more like my co-panelists and a lot less like me. And that's a really good thing.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jim.
That's a great thing.
I have I don't see questions in the chat, but I have one for Lena and Michelle. And that is a concern that I have heard expressed about the loss of permanent music infrastructure in music communities. How worried should we be, and what can we do about it?
Do you want to take this first, Lena?
You can take.
Cities community.
You
Just
mean
in terms
loss
of some of the
About the loss of music infrastructure.
You mean
over
in
this
terms of
past year.
COVID?
Yes.
Yeah. It's challenging, definitely. And it will be up for a big transformation. It will not be the same. But as I said as well, I'm an optimist, and although it has been very tough, and it will still be very tough, because questions are now, even if cities are able to open again, who is opening, who can be opening, who is going to go with what kind of feeling, which policies are there to be implemented, that it's a long-term and sustainable kind of support that still is going to be needed, because venues can't just simply open, then everything is running again. So it will be challenging, and I just can point out and hope that everyone who's involved in policies and creating frames will understand that we need this, because this is everything that a lot of people will be asking for and that we know of. And now it's kind of kicked with the feet most of the time. And I really hope that this is never going to happen again, but we will need to strike back hard.
Michelle, what are your thoughts?
Okay, again, I think some of the challenges in West Africa present a slightly different scenario. Music infrastructure, so we're talking about things like studios, etc. Those kinds of infrastructures, it's already challenging to have those things exist in the first place, and affordability. So in a lot of respects, we're kind of on the back foot in that respect. A lot of musicians in that region really rely on live performances. They don't necessarily rely on the sale of music, because people don't necessarily have that disposable income to purchase music. We had this very brief conversation before where we talked about, the conflict between this notion of piracy and access to music. Well, in Africa, the piracy is actually what elevates musicians. It's how their music gets out there. Very few people, do have, the tech in their houses or even the disposable income to purchase CDs, etc. And I remember we had a little laugh about, well, who buys CDs? Well, they still buy CDs in West Africa, albeit that they are burnt. So that tension has always existed. I think the main loss will be these live venues, which musicians absolutely depend upon for an income, for livelihood. And that, if anything, is what policy needs to be addressing. How do we keep these venues open? Much more so than the things that we take for granted in the West, where actually even being able to make music in your own home, which relies on electricity and these kinds of things, these are real challenges for musicians and producers. So, yes, these are the things that need to be addressed in terms of how do we retain and also create new infrastructures that will support the production of music.
Thank you, Michelle. And I imagine that the answer to how we get there will lay within music and business working together now as ever, and maybe more importantly than ever, in order to ensure that we have a robust music ecosystem in 2026 and beyond. Panelists, thank you all for joining. Audience, thank you for waking up early or staying up late. Gigi, back over to you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Larry.
Thank
What
you.
a really marvelous panel. I know we could have readily had another half hour on this topic, and we kind of are, in the fact that we're going to have more panels breaking many of these things this panel introduced across the day. So we'll see everybody in 2 minutes.